rather than myself.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Let me just do the classic bit where I try and share my screen now because that's there we go. Cool. Hopefully now you can see a screen that says engaging tenants and customers in the product and process. I'll look at Hannah to see if I can get a thumbs up that it all works. Brilliant. Okay, let's get started. And I want to start by saying thank you to TPAS for having me back, and particularly for the work that they do. In my day job at Sero and in my other role on the board of Newid, I really appreciate the work that TPAS do in helping engage tenants in all of the challenges facing in housing. So it's a real honour to be invited back to talk here. So thank you very much, and thank you for all your hard work, and to everyone who's listening as well for all the hard work you do in the sector. It is greatly appreciated. Here's me. I'm Kris. I'm Customer Experience Manager. I will give a far less glowing introduction than Hannah did for me there. I'm not here to sell Sero. I'll talk a bit about it a bit. I'm here to help. What we've been working on over the last few years, we've learned a lot of things, and what I want to do today in the next few minutes is share some of those stories, share those examples about what we've learned about what it means for tenants, residents, customers, whatever collective noun you like, to work and live and go through a net change to net zero. Since we last spoke a year ago, I've moved to a new role in Sero, which means I no longer manage the frontline service team, but I've moved into a role more broadly looking at the customer experience, and that gives me an opportunity to work more closely with registered social landlords, social housing providers in providing great customer experiences for their tenants, residents, whatever collective noun you like, on their journey to net zero. And I'm really excited about that because it's something I'm passionate about, and the change feels like coming home to me. So that's me. Let's go on and talk about it. What else has happened in the last year since net zero? Energy costs went through the roof. Yeah, it was really painful. The government had to step in. The energy costs are coming down, but the reality is this first bit of reduction is about £400 on the year, and there's £400 less subsidy coming from the government. So the relief is not filtering through yet. Food costs are rising at an unbelievable rate. I was in food retail for the best part of 20 years, and I've never seen food inflation numbers like this. And, you know, in social housing and everywhere, repairs costs are rising because of the cost of energy, the cost of materials, the challenges to get workforces. It's hard, and thank you for keep going, but we do need to keep going because net zero faces the biggest challenge that as a species we've faced ever, probably, and everything is getting more expensive, but we do need to keep going. A slight aside, if I may, I saw this terrifying statistic on the National Energy Action Twitter over the last few days. There is £130 million worth of unclaimed vouchers from the government energy relief scheme, still unclaimed and expiring on the 30th of June, and it would be terrible for those to get lost. So if you have residents or tenants that might be affected and you get the opportunity to give them a gentle reminder, please do. Sorry, that's nothing to do with net zero. Sorry, I'm not sorry. It's important. The other thing that continues to rise is temperatures continue to rise, and we can feel it today. I'm looking over there, it's 25 degrees in here already at not even 9:30 in the morning. I wanted to talk about that because I think it's important that we remember why we're doing the things with the transition to net zero. A lot of the dialogue I hear, a lot of what people are talking about, oh, the government are pushing this and the government are pushing that. Yes, I get that, and they're enabling those works through legislation, of course, but that's not really the reason why. The reason why is shown in this chart here. Each little stripe is a year over the last 100 years. The darker blue, the line, the colder it was versus the average. The darker red, the line, the higher versus the average temperature. And there's a very, very serious trend there that you can see to now, where the temperatures are rising. And I think that's really important that we remember that, That's why we're going on this transition. A lot of people debate that. The evidence is overwhelming. Temperatures are rising. And if we do nothing, the people who will suffer the most from those temperature rising are the most vulnerable people in the world. And so it is time that we get on with it and do things. All is not lost, though. If we take action now, and we are taking action, we can make this transition to a net zero and help protect the environment. And at Sero, we're doing that in one way of trying to be in the middle of this Venn diagram, lowering the cost of energy for residents, lowering their CO2 emissions, and providing great service to make it easy for them to achieve those things. What I'd like to talk to you about now is what we've learned over the last few years. Last year, I talked very much around the technical aspects of an intelligent energy system, all the things that come through. Today, I want to talk to you about the human elements, what people have learned, what people are likely to experience, so that you can carry those messages forward when you're talking to your tenants, supporting them on this transition. So I'll go through, I'll jump around a bit, but these are the important things, the lessons that hopefully everyone on this call can take forward and help support their residents with. A retrofit is not a one and done project. It is not a simple installation where someone comes in, installs a piece of equipment and ta-da, here's your lower energy and lower carbon. It's harder than that. And to make it cost effective, that's probably going to be a series of works over several years as part of the home, need renewing and doing all of those things in a way to pull it together in the most cost effective and resident effective way. What I'm showing you here is an example of one of our pathways to zero, which is based from a survey that's done on a house, and it points out the work that needs to be done to bring this home to a net zero. And that is a series of works over 4 or 5 years, changing things, moving forward as we progress to that net zero. So that means there's a real risk of change fatigue for people. That's a lot. That's a lot of things are going through. And we know that there are going to be people who really find that uncomfortable and challenging. And that's where housing professionals will play a part in really supporting residents in understanding those things and the transition and journey of how their homes go. It's also important for the sake of the home to plan that properly so that you're not undoing work that you've previously done later in the scheme and you're not getting all of those things wrong. You don't put in a heat pump before you change the radiators. It will cost you money, it'll cause you all sort of problems. This planning is important. I'm not sure from the conversations I've had with residents, they always understand it. They think it is a one and done thing. We need to start having that conversation. Because we have to think of the whole customer journey along the process of net zero. And I've seen lots of great work done on customer journeys and project maps and all of those things for it. But one point I think is really important to recognize is that you don't get to choose when the journey starts. And if you aren't discussing net zero with your residents already, someone else is. I just did a few Google searches and picked up these numbers. Heat pumps, 303 million results. Solar panels, 240 million results. You're not having climate change, 1.5 billion results. If you're not into the conversation with your residents about net zero, what it might mean to them and how things are going to need to change, someone's filling that void. And sadly, they're not always filling it with useful, helpful, accurate information. Sometimes with the best of intentions, but sometimes things can be misleading. And sadly, I'm already starting to see and hear reports of people selling solar panels and batteries and then disappearing off and taking the money of hardworking, vulnerable people and running off. So please do think, if you're not in the conversation with your customers now, who's filling that gap, who's giving them the information that you might or might not want them to need. Here's a fun fact. Heat pumps are not gas boilers. We know this, okay? They're different. They are, in effect, better. People get used to them and they love them. It provides them comfortable, warm, and lower energy costs. But they are different. And we have to understand exactly what that is. We have a guy at Sero called John. He's brilliant. He's an incredibly clever man. He's an engineer, and I asked him about heat pumps and how they work and how can I understand their coefficient performance. And he explained all of this thing to me with coefficients of performance and cooling levels. And so I went to ChatGPT and asked him to explain it to me in a way that a 10-year-old could understand, which makes it a lot clearer. I'll be honest, I actually first asked ChatGPT to explain it to me as if I was a 7-year-old. And that I absolutely got. It said, a heat pump is a magic box that takes heat from one place and moves it to another, making one place hot and another place cold. And I kind of understood that because I've got one. I own one of those. It looks a bit like this. I really do wish I had a bright pink fridge, but I haven't. But a fridge is a heat pump. And that's important to understand. It's a type of heat pump. Heat pumps aren't a new technology. We've been living with them for a long, long time. We're just putting them to a different purpose. So when residents are getting nervous about, oh, this heat pump, it's untested and that, no, it's, it's there. It's been used for a long time. We're using it for a different purpose. We're doing lots of different things with it, but it's not a new technology. We do spend a lot of time and read a lot around their efficiency, return on investment, skill shortage for installations, the coefficient of performance, the fact that by using the heat of the ground with a ground source heat pump, you can get more heat out than the energy you get in. And those are all really interesting articles. They're out there on the internet. You can go and read them, go on the BBC website. I searched there, there's 29 pages of articles about heat pumps. What I want to talk to you about is the lived experience with a heat pump, of what it feels like to have a heat pump heating your home. This is a picture of a heat pump. Heat pumps work more slowly at lower temperatures for longer. It's an efficient way of heating your home. It keeps you nice and comfortable. But there's some things which are just different with it. It means you have to plan for heating. And I know, because there's people at Sero who do this, who don't even use the timer for their current gas boiler. They just have the thermostat and they use it kind of as an on-off switch. And, oh, I'm cold, I'll turn it up. I get warm, I turn it back down and turn it on and off. And you can use a heat pump like that, but it's not the most efficient way of doing it. And it's not going to keep you comfortable because they are slower acting. A heat pump, what we're seeing, will raise you about one degree an hour. And there's a bit of a lag phase to start it off. So if you don't plan for your heating and think of those things, you're going to find yourself cold. So getting involved and understanding the schedule of when you're in or out is really important. There's a big difference as well of on a cold day when you walk in, we're used to, and it's a generational thing, if we want to check that the heating's on. So we'll go and grab the radiator and hug it and go, oh, yes, the heating is on. Well, actually, that radiator is never going to feel as hot in a low temperature system. And actually, in a well-insulated room with an intelligent energy system, heating your home with a heat pump, it might have got the room up to a nice temperature, knows that the insulation is going to keep it warm, and it's turned off. And I've genuinely had the calls from people in the past of that, Kris, can you have a look at this room? And that I have never felt the radiator be on. Have you ever been cold in that room? No, if anything, that was going to be my next question. I'm too hot. Yeah, that's about the understanding. You're too hot, but you think it's not working. It is working. Just need to turn the temperature down and think about, how do I feel in the room? Am I comfortable? Not, is my radiator hot? Because it's not likely to be. Sometimes in the deepest, coldest parts of the winter, your heat pump is going to run possibly all day. It will work out that it is easier, cheaper, more efficient, and the best way to keep you comfortable is to just keep you warm, not allow the temperature drop, because you know it won't come back. And that can worry people at first because they'll start to think, oh, it's been running a long time. It costs me more money. And that's where it'll be really important to understand the cost of heating and energy over the course of the year varies. We'll bring it in, it'll save you money over the long term. But in the instances, some days may be more expensive. Talking about bills, people don't understand their bills. This is an example bill from an energy supplier's website. I believe I've removed their logo because I'm not trying to embarrass them. But if you have a document that on your website, you have to put on for one page, 10 different points to explain what's going on. It's not an easy to understand document. And people need to be open that is a challenge, that we need to help people understand their energy bills. There are people at Sero who, when I talk to them, will honestly say, I don't really understand my energy bill. Kris, I understand 0.8. What do I pay? And they don't get the rest of it. The problem is, if you don't understand your bill, you can't understand your usage, and you can't make the best decisions to lower the cost or get the benefit from solar power. Future of energy charging in the UK, definitely, maybe the world, is dynamic tariffs where the price changes through the day, and they're starting to return to the market. This is Octopus Energy, one of the most innovative energy companies out there, and this is one of their local tariffs, their newest tariffs, sorry. I'm not trying to advertise it. What I'm pointing out is it works by providing 2 times of the day where energy is cheap, one day when it's really, really expensive, in line with wholesale prices. And if you understand your bills and you can understand your energy usage, you can take advantage of that. And what's really exciting about that is we know the people who need it most, who are most in tune with their spending and able to, most willing to change their behaviors, can then benefit the most by doing their high energy things when energy is cheap, and avoiding doing things when energy is expensive. And in doing so, reducing their overall energy price. Now, that's quite a simple one. I could set up my home to take advantage of that if I had a heat pump and a battery and solar. If we look at the really dynamic ones, like this is Agile Octopus, where it varies every 30 minutes. There's huge opportunities there. If you look, there's some times in that last 7 days where energy was less than 5 pence per kilowatt hour. That is going to need an intelligent energy system in order to take advantage of it. And that's why I do think these things of the future, supporting residents to take advantage of this energy use by informing them of their usage and how they can affect it with their behavior, can really help lower people's costs for it. So our role as professionals helping people is to work with them to try and understand this thing so they can make the right informed decision. And at Sero, we're trying to simplify that, bring it all together in one bill, whether it's solar, energy, and all of those parts. And if there's financing costs, because it's a finance retrofit from a project vehicle, more on that with a session. I'll be joining as well with Talana later in the week, but keeping it really, really simple, nice and easy for customers to understand is one of our serious goals, so that we can help people understand their usage and their transition to net zero. A lot of the questions I get are, what happens if things break? There's a lot of new technology, it's cutting edge. How do we know that it's going to last the lifetime? And let's be honest, we know in social housing, previous projects, previous trials of things, the equipment hasn't always worked, hasn't always been repairable, and has caused long-term costs. So let's talk about some of the different stuff. We've talked about heat pumps. It's a new use of an old technology. Batteries are the big one around the home. And I can tell you exactly why people are worried about the lifespan of the battery. So I have an iPhone, I have a 2-year contract with it, and by the end of that contract, that battery is struggling. Well, these things are better. They're different. A home battery, if you go out and have a look at it, a 10-year warranty on one of these batteries is fairly typical. Most of them are 10 years. There's some will give a bit longer. Some of the cheaper end are a bit shorter. And we saw, I couldn't find the website again to show it to you live, but it was quite cool. There was a lab in Australia that was just charging and discharging these batteries and showing the capacity for it. So we expect a battery to have a total life of 25 years, a usable life in the home, losing about 1% per year. The annual servicing of heat pumping and battery is no more onerous than routine gas boiler servicing. It does need servicing. It should be looked at, all of those things, but it's no more challenging, mostly involving visual checks of things. It is, nothing gets pulled apart. It's not more expensive than everything you've got that. And solar panels, again, long lifetime, 25 years. The inverter needs a visual check. That's the bit that will need changing. So the equipment is there, it's tested, it's built to last. With the challenges of new technology also comes new opportunities in the fact that we can understand what the parts in the home are doing and fix those problems or support those problems remotely without doing it. 9 times out of 10, if we've had a call for a loss of heating or hot water, we've been able to support the resident to fix that problem themselves without any tools, just doing things with hands, by understanding that a heat pump needs repressurizing just like a condensing boiler. We can see the performance, we can understand what's going through, help them there, save any expensive call outs for a simple thing by helping them through it. And in fact, we can monitor things and actually be proactive. I love the story. We had one of these, we had an error coming through home, and I had an engineer just around the corner. I was able to phone the resident and say, look, I think there's a problem with your hot water tank. I've got an engineer down the road. Are you in? Can you come in and have a look? And the person said, no, Chris, my husband's just been in the shower. He's just gone to work. Plenty of hot water. I'm afraid your system's wrong. There's nothing wrong. She phoned me back 10 minutes later saying, yeah, I've just got out of the shower. He's used up all the hot water and it's freezing. Is our engineer still around? Yeah, he'll be with you in 5 minutes. He's just finishing the job. That kind of proactive thing is not just great for the resident, but it's actually really great for an efficiency point of view of repairs team. If you can use that information to dynamically schedule visits and get to things, the potential are huge. And if anyone's wondering why there's 500 health checks on this report, I filtered for ones that aren't installed yet to get a picture of them not working. Fear not. Let's talk about summer, which is where we are now. A well-insulated home is very different to what we are used to in the UK. Let's be honest, we're used to this, the worst insulation in Europe. After 5 hours of on average, a 3-degree temperature loss. That's quite significant. And we'll see, in the winter, fixing that problem is brilliant because it saves you money, keeps you warm without applying the heat. It means we have to be really mindful of what is happening in the summer because homes can get really, really quite warm. I went back to John and asked him to explain to me how the heating works and with the sun and all of those things. And he pointed me to this, and I'm not even going to try to explain that because I understand all of those words, but the order that they've put in there has removed all meaning from me. He did show me this picture, which actually this I can hold on to. That is a window. The incident radiation is sunlight, and the sunlight shines on the window. It goes in. The room inside gets warmer. Even I can grasp that. When it's really insulated, that room gets warm and continues to get warm if we don't do anything different. This is a graph of performance of the home from the 10th over the weekend on one that I knew was unoccupied. So it was just left doing its own thing. And that's where you can see we get up to 26 degrees and it just stays there. We're used to it getting cooler at night and doing all of those things. With these levels of homes of insulation that we're going to need to hit net zero, when it gets warm, it stays warm. And instead, what we're going to have to do is think about those things they've had to do on the continent. So when it is really warm, and then these are tips that you can use now if you're really warm. When it is really warm, keep the sun out in the heat of the day. Close the curtains, close the windows. When it's hotter outside than it is inside, close the curtains, close the windows, keep the heat out. Not until it gets cooler outside than it is inside do you open the windows and try and get some airflow. And also houseplants can make it a really nice more comfortable point when it is warm inside. I don't really know why, but the evidence is overwhelming apparently. More houseplants is good for your health in a hot environment inside the home. This is the reality when we come to it. Is some people are going to need ongoing support beyond the life of installation or retrofit of those work. And that's where we can support people as Sero, as housing professionals to do it. But it's not going to be a sheep dip approach. We need to understand our residents, understand their lifestyles, and understand how we can help them. Some people will just get it. I had one customer, we were doing the onboarding and showing the app, and this shows you heating, and I'm into my monologue and going, and 2 minutes in, he says, Kris, hang on a sec, just stop you there. Are you just going to spend the next 10 minutes telling me I control my heating with an app? Because I'm all right. I get it. Yeah, that's pretty much what I was going to do. That's fine. Apart from one bill query, never spoken to him again since. He's happy, he's living, he's saving money, he's doing all of those things. And equally, you have other people who are really scared of it, need that support, and needs, still check in with us each autumn. Kris, what do I need to do? Get ready for winter? Nothing. But the temperature's getting colder outside. Do I need some heating up? No. It will achieve the temperature you set it. If that's comfortable for you in the summer, it's comfortable for you in the winter, 20 degrees is 20 degrees, despite what it is outside. You can just leave it alone. Okay, thank you. That's great. And they'll phone me back in spring. What do I need to do for the summer? And we'll go through this cycle because they just get nervous around it because it's a significant change that they've had to do and know for a long time. That's what we're trying to do at Sero, empower people to help other people, working on projects that we're going through to understand the benefits, challenges, and what support is needed for net zero so we can make this transition together and go back to that point of combining reduced carbon footprint, reduce energy costs, and great service to help people transition to net zero. Thank you for listening. That was all the bits I wanted to go through. I've obviously got very excited because I've spoken very quickly, but hopefully you have some questions for me that aren't too technical, and I will try and answer them for you.
Thank you, Kris. That was an amazing presentation. And yeah, if you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll be monitoring them. David, do you have any comments?
It's been fairly quiet so far in the Q&A. So the dynamic tariffs, Kris, that fascinates me because I thought I'd pay about 34, 35p on a standard tariff. And the fact that you could potentially top up your battery at 5p or something like that. Now, would your battery know to do that automatically, or is that the Sero B would go, oh, let's top up the battery at this time of the morning? How do you take advantage of those cheap tariffs?
I'll give you both sides of the answers. There are some batteries out there in the system that will be programmable about
right.
the times. You can say it's cheap at this time and more expensive at that time. What we're developing is a dynamic algorithm that will take advantage of that in a more intelligent way, so it'll flex day by day. We're continuously working on that and trying to take the most advantage of it. What's really interesting is by making the most of those cheaper times and then removing the usage at those peak times, you can cut your effective rate for energy costs in half by taking those parts of it. And there's loads of really cool things outside going on at the moment. There's some battery only tariffs that are coming in now where you can buy the energy from your supplier when it's really cheap overnight and then sell it back to them at a profit later on in the day when energy requires needs. And there's something about that I just find really satisfying. The fact that I could, for once, we can win. Yeah, we can take that energy, we'll sell it back to you later on there. But there's a reason why that works and why it's incentivized. Is we're going to need that for the point of our transition to net zero, because it limits the amount of energy we need at those peak times when people are just coming home from work, cooking an evening meal, turning the heat on, taking a shower. And that energy is more expensive because it's dirtier. because to keep up with that, that's where we have to burn more fossil fuels. We have to do all of those things.
Yeah.
So not only do you save money, but you can make a really positive impact on the environment by doing those things.
I saw a comment by Gareth Clubb, who's director of World Wildlife Fund in Wales, and somewhere up Grimsby way, they're turning on a mothball coal-fired power station because of the demand for air conditioning, so the coal power station's almost fueling climate change. So we need more, and the madness of that whole cycle. Whereas if we could insulate and cool the buildings down and use buildings more intelligently, I think my concern, is some of the solutions, unless they have that type of technology in, that does the smart technology, how would the general tenant know it's cheap at 3 o'clock in the morning? Tariffs will change, tariffs, I struggle where there's not that smart intelligence behind it, because some of these technologies need a certain amount of knowledge. And
there's a risk if you get it wrong that you could try and do the wrong thing and end up costing you more money. And that's where I see, where I watch it, is that more housing associations producing more energy advisors, giving specialist training to their team to support their tenants. I think that's a great idea, and that's part of my role switch in Sero, is actually what can we do on projects that we're working with to support housing professionals to support their own residents by understanding these technologies and doing those things. I mean, I think that, combined with the intelligent energy systems doing some of the legwork and hard work for you, is the way forward. I mean, that's the Sero answer. Other answers are available. You might think some are better. I mean, you're wrong and you're hurting my feelings, but apart from a joke. But yeah, it's a combination of two. The machine, you can get the machines to do a lot of the heavy lifting, and we've seen the advances in AI over the future, but there will be some people, particularly the most vulnerable, who will need that extra support. And that's where we're going to work. And I think we all need to work as a society, really, to support those people by understanding these things better.
Okay. I've noticed now, since we've been talking, a whole load of questions have come in.
We've got lots of questions.
Sorry. I'm going to start with Vicky. I will come to Trisha. I just need this is a two-part. I need to understand it. So Vicky Shenton's asked, what user guides do you provide to your tenants? Because she's working on a project with a passive house, and they've got ground source heat pumps, solar panels, etc. Probably got a mechanical recovery and heat recovery in there somewhere. Though it's not mentioned. And she doesn't want to overwhelm the tenants. How do you approach tenants with new homes, and whether that's retrofit or new builds? I know you do both, don't you? Yeah.
We do both. And we very much think you need to take a bit of a because no one's the same. And was it Vicky? I think exactly right. You don't want to overwhelm people. We take as much as we can a bespoke tiered approach to it. Yeah? So particularly where we've got home controls provided with the app, we talk to people, look, just set it up like this, and you can leave it alone. That's fine. Yeah. We'll also give them an instruction guide with a brief thing that doesn't talk about how things work, but talks about the outcomes that you can expect. So set it by 8 o'clock and it'll be warm by that. It might start at a different time. It might do all that. Don't worry about those things. Just concentrate on the outcomes of what you're trying to achieve rather than technicalities. And what we do have then is our Sero knowledge base on our website you can get through, which has all of the articles that for some people will really want to know the ins and outs of it. It gives them more opportunity to read and understand. And we have a service desk to answer those queries as well. I think you have to have that bespoke approach. We have had people who are like, literally, I don't care, it works, it's fine. And then we had one of our customers, he's a great guy. During COVID, he was furloughed, sadly, and he phoned me up and he said, Kris, I'm really bored and I've decided to learn about heat pumps. So I'm sat under my stairs and I'm drawing some graphs. I've got some questions. And he was genuinely excited about it. So, but if you gave that level of understanding and questions to the other people who are going to struggle with it, you're going to cause more problems around it. So for me, and to summarize that waffle, focus on the outcomes that the customer is going to expect is the best way to give them the point of it, and then lead them and give them the opportunity to go and find out more if they want to.
That's great. I think Vicky Shenton had a follow-up, which was around what advice do you give to tenants before works take place? You know, I don't know if you're involved in that part, but you know, before you're doing a retrofit or and I know probably we've got somebody from Pobble talking this afternoon who might be able to cover that.
Yeah.
From Penderry. But is there anything you'd particularly want to say on that about before work?
Yeah, I think you have David from Pobble who's been leading that project for Pobble in Penderry, and he'd be better placed to talk about those interactions of it, whereas we support those points. But our work in those initial points is to support the teams to understand what's going on, so that they can help the residents. And what's really important there is it's not just your resident engagement teams or your customer service teams. I think everyone in the organization needs to have a general understanding, because I go back to, you don't get to choose where the journey starts. You also don't get to choose always when a question's going to come in. And so it's important that your repairs operatives who are going to doing other things, they don't need to know the detail, but they need to know a general understanding so they can give confidence in those queries. And they need to be able to point the resident in the direction of where they can find out more if they want to. Because otherwise you're going to have this, you know, it's not fair on the operative. He's going to feel uncomfortable being asked a question that he doesn't know the answer. That's not fair. They can have a void of information that could be filled in the wrong way. And so a lot of what we're doing is building a point of understanding how you can upskill everyone through the organization by, you know, understanding who's in that resident's world and who's likely to get questions.
That's good. That's good. Amanda's made a point and about everything focuses on cost savings and the energy usage, but how easily is it thinking changing to consider summer heat? She's making the point elderly and disabled people sometimes suffer more or just as much in the summer. And I know, before maybe Kris answers on this, there's something we've raised before, and I think things like heat pumps, it depends on the type of heat pump as well, doesn't it? You can have heat pumps that will chill and cool. I believe your site down in the mill did this, didn't it? But, sorry, maybe Kris is better answer this, so I'll stop.
No, go for it.
Okay.
No, yeah, look, it's an absolutely valid point, and as temperatures rise and all of those bits, like I've just looked over now, yeah, I've hit 26 degrees in here. It's warm. I'll start struggling to finish sentences in another degree's time. So I get that, and that's really important. There's part of what we talked about earlier is helping people understand what's within their control to manage their temperature is really important. There are technical solutions. We had some heat pumps can provide heating as well as cooling. And you're exactly right, David. In the test home we had at the mill, we had one that does exactly that. Use the heat pump to provide cooling, and you can get that air conditioning point of it. I believe, although I can't find it, someone will correct me if the stat is wrong. I believe as a planet, we spend more energy cooling than heating generally anyway. So it is definitely something we need to consider, particularly as temperature rising, how we make sure those environments are comfortable. Yeah.
And I think the other thing to Amanda is that you may have heard this before because you've heard me too many times, but I was with the chief exec of a housing association last year, and they were saying for their plans for retrofit, oh, we've got a program that analyzes all the properties and this type of buildings, and we'll come up with a solution based on that type of material and building. And I struggle with that because it didn't factor in the people in those homes. So when you're designing solutions, whether it be a heat pump, infrared heating, all these different things, there was no factor I felt for the people. And I think that's the missing loop sometimes in some of these technical plans at the moment. And like you say, who's in the building, I think, is essential to the technology. Yeah.
It is the single biggest variable that will affect a home's energy use, is the people who live in it. Yeah. You know, and we've got to support people and understand those things. That's what I've tried to do in this session today. Is whilst we're talking about the equipment and the changes, but actually, what is the effect they have on people and help them to understand that. Because in the dialogue, you know, on the website, when you come through, that's not discussed as much, and it's really important.
Yeah, And I think Chloe's made a point here when Kris, when we talk about the people in the properties, you know, when you mention the customer using an app, is this a smartphone app or a separate device? And I know many vulnerable tenants are not using smartphones at them, you know, currently. And whilst we have an aging population, they will get used to it. Is there a requirement to have a phone app?
No, is the honest answer. We when we're dealing with home controls, we do have a smartphone app that does all of those things. Of course we do. It is the future, people will do it. But also we have a support system that makes sure that those people who need a bit of extra help get it. They can phone us, they can write a letter if they wanted to, and we can sort it out for them. And I know that sometimes that people think, oh, well, that'd be really intrusive to my life if I have to keep every time wanting to phone people and do that. But it really isn't, because once you get it set up right, once you have your schedule and your comfort sets that keeps you comfortable and mimics your life, it really is set and forget. We measure one of the successes of our app is that people don't really use it because they kind of just do it and then forget it. It probably upsets the finance team greatly because it's really expensive, and then people go, "Oh yeah, okay, cool," and they never use it. But equally, we do have residents, customers who live in homes who don't use the app. If they want changes and want to understand anything, they give us a ring and we can set up their schedule. But all of our homes as well, so all have in-home controls as well. And it's a really simple one. I think you've seen it, David, when we were in the mill.
Yep.
It is just a dial in the room. You turn it one way, red lights come on, 1, 2, 3 degrees hotter. Turn it the other way, 1, 2, 3 degrees cooler. Really, really simple and easy to use for those people who aren't doing. So, you know, you can have that instant change. Drop us a letter, give us a ring, give us an email, and we'll support you in that transition.
Right. Richard Williams was asking about that proportion of new build versus retrofit. So are the lessons learned by Sero in that work connected with new properties or ones that have had retrofit? Do you know your sort of ratio? And yeah.
I don't know the ratio. We get our most significant learnings at the minute from build, because we can see we have more control and understanding of the fabric building, what's going on with that. But then we have a team of analysts who retrofit the data to understand, right, if that's going to happen in this type of home that is this level of insulation, what is that going to look like in X, Y, and Z homes? So they're not separate, if you see what I mean. We can learn from one and take those learnings to improve our services, products, and procedures, processes, and things for the other. And we have some great people who do exactly that.
Okay. Kevin Thomas has asked, do you have evidence of reduced energy costs? You know, you talked about people being maybe half their bills, because this could be a great incentive for our customers to get on board. I know I've got a view on this, on evidence, but I don't know if, Kris, you want to say anything first? Or?
Yes, we do. We've seen significant reductions modelled against, you know, like for like properties, and we're seeing those reductions. The challenge with all of those things is the biggest single variable is always the person who lives in the home, and so it's dangerous to say you can expect this or you can expect that. So we try and compare like for like. I do like the extreme examples, and admittedly, it was a single occupant of a 2-bedroom flat with a massive solar array. We came through, did all of those parts, and her forecast energy bills for the year were 460 quid. And the government were paying 400 quid, and she already had 80 quid credit from her balance. So we were like, we'll see you in a year. We are seeing significant reductions. The other bit, but it's hard to demonstrate that in a meaningful way because of the variance of the person, and also because of everything that's gone with energy prices. That energy reduction is a reduced gain, if you see what I mean, because where energy prices have doubled over 12 months, people are going, well, my energy is still bill is still higher than it was to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But if it wasn't for the technology, the insulation, the solar, and all of those things, it would be X.
Yeah.
So it's hard to demonstrate it in a way that is meaningful to people. But yes, we are absolutely seeing that, and we can model it for individual usage and those kind of things.
I would also add, I think it was Kevin, I think the question's gone off the screen now, but you're right. Energy usage, the costs went up, which didn't help some of the cases, but also people sometimes their energy usage goes up as a result of having cheaper electricity or insulation, because one, they're either underheating their homes. I've done it. I've underheated my home because of the costs. So actually, when you start having more work, more solar PV and things like that, your energy use might go up. And also there was certainly some cases in Scotland where people had this feeling that they suddenly had cheaper electricity, or they suddenly had these things. So they were using more. The hot tub summer we talked about yesterday in one of the sessions, people buying from Home Bargains, you know, a hot tub or something suddenly, and their electricity went up massively, especially that summer of 2020. And that's one thing. So the other thing I wanted to say, sorry, on this was we've been pressing Welsh Government quite bluntly, I'm going to put it, around the need for a knowledge exchange. And I know there is something coming soon around a portal that will have some of the ORP learning, some of the ORP cases of how people got on with it. Did they save? How much did it cost to do information? Because that information's there amongst, should we say, you know, not private, but senior people in housing associations and councils who are sharing case studies. But we need that to be wider, but to bring everyone else on board. And I know they're close on the Hannah. I think it was July they were talking about launching a portal of knowledge. And so when we hear about the date and everything else, I can assure the TPAS audience here, we will make sure you know about it, and we'll do a session on it.
Definitely.
Sorry, Kris, for taking away from you.
No, great, and it is a great point as well about people using the reduction in energy cost to improve their comfort. A really positive thing. If your bills stay the same, but you're no longer chronically underheating your home, that's probably a bigger success than anything.
Yeah. Right, Lynn's asked a question about the homes that are being built now are not taking into account the problems that people are facing with them being too warm. Have you looked at whether air conditioning is needed to be factored into the buildings?
We look at lots, and we have a team who are constantly revising and understanding building regulations and advising on what it could be. It's beyond my personal knowledge to understand all of those parts, but particularly considering what can cooling look like in an energy efficient way is absolutely on the list, but also making sure people make informed decisions about roof pitch angles and how that can help cooling and all of those things. So yeah, excuse me, we have a team of people who are constantly looking and understanding for all of those bits and advising as much as we can in projects that we're involved in, that actually maybe this might be a better way to do it.
Yeah, and I think, Lynn, the other thing was they may not be called air conditioning as such. Like I say, it could be mechanical heat recovery that will do cooling as well, or will the heat pumps might be doing that. But also the designs, I think Vicky Shenton mentioned about passive house and things like that. One of the things, as Kris mentioned, there's an overlip on the windows so that it prevents overheating in the summer, I believe, but the angle is designed in the windows to get that winter sun to help warm the place up as well. I tried to watch a whole video on the technicalities of passive house and I got a bit lost from it, but I did.
Yeah, and I've had that conversation with John and understand and exactly what you say is you can do it with a pitch angle so that in the summer it keeps it cool, but in the winter you get it in warm. It blows my mind.
Yeah,
I that's one for asking ChatGPT, David. Say, explain it to me like I'm a 7-year-old, and do that.
And there is, you know, this is the whole point of DQR, whatever the new DQR2 was called. New design standards that we're trying to make these properties better, you know, the new builds and stuff, and it's always new knowledge, new standards coming from Welsh governments. So it might not be called aircon as such, but there will be, I think, other things that will do a similar role.
Mhm.
Right. Thank you to Andrew and others who've answered some of the questions about variable tariffs. I think Trisha Jones has asked, if clients were to ask the benefits re saving money, what would your advice be? I'm not sure I fully understand that, Trisha. So ask the benefits of saving. What are the benefits of the retrofit? Is it saving money? Is there any others? Or
I think she said below with heat pumps, so I don't know if that pertains specifically to retrofitting with heat pumps, other benefits.
So the benefits, as I see them, are threefold. Yeah, they can save you money because you have this coefficient of performance where it uses, if you take a ground source heat pump, it uses the heat from the ground to help heat your water. So, you know, for some of them, they have what they call a coefficient of performance. So for 1 unit of energy in, you can get 3 units of energy out. That saves you money.
Yeah.
It also means you're not burning fossil fuels,
yeah,
which saves carbon and improves air quality. And that's good. And actually, because these things are becoming more technical and can be diagnosed and fixed remotely and those things, I think you can use them to get a better service and more comfort from your home. So it's all 3 of those things.
Yeah.
In the current climate, people are really cost conscious. So that's why it makes sense to be talking about those cost savings. But it is threefold, you know, and let's not forget, going back to that chart where it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. We need to stop burning fossil fuels, and this is the way to do it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Kirsty's asked a question that I've thought about a few times as well, which is, does it have to be does a heat pump need to be installed in a particular place in the home?
The honest answer is yes, but so does a gas boiler, in that it has to have connections to the outside, whether it's air or ground source, and all of those things. I don't know the technical limitations. There isn't a home that that I've encountered any of that where we haven't been able to go, that's where a heat pump could go, and that would do it. I think they all have to be on the ground floor, is the only thing with a ground
There are
source
a
heat
couple
pump.
of innovations about having roof heat pumps, but again, how do you service a roof heat pump and things like this? So
I think those air source heat pumps can be more flexible with that and can go outside. I'll be honest, that's one for ChatGPT, beyond my technical expertise. I don't know.
What I would say, Kirsty, is I think there's a number of questions like this around heat pumps that I would love to do a session with, and I've already written down John's name. And because some of the things, I was down in Cardiff Council recently, and they had a number of new builds, modular builds for homeless, and the heat pumps were like between the buildings, almost shaded between 2 buildings like that. And I was like, why aren't they on the sunny side? And they were trying to explain to me, it's not sun energy, it's radiant, sorry, not radiant energy, but it's energy in the air. So you don't need to have it on the sun side, the sun baking on it to work. And I just couldn't get my head around that. Actually, I still don't. So I think there's an event we'll look at, maybe with the Heat Pump Association, maybe look at, so we can get this, your advisor at Sero in as well, and maybe we could do something around some of those questions.
I'd be making it up if I went any more technical
that's fine.
than that. So I'll move on. But yeah, I think that's a great idea of an event.
Yeah. A couple of more questions about, what is the life of an air source heat pump?
I think you mentioned at the beginning.
Have longer general lives than a gas boiler, and I've been seeing some studies now when you include the whole cost of life with them, they end up actually being cheaper than a gas boiler over its total life. They last longer, servicing is less expensive because it's less cumbersome and less in tune. So they have a significantly longer life than a gas boiler. I'm filling for time to see if I can remember the number off the top of my head, but I can't.
The data I've seen says they do last longer than gas boilers, yeah, but maybe not as long as radiant heating, because you haven't got the mechanical or wet movement around there. It's all about solutions, and I say they're always getting better, I think, as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lynn asked, how many customers are you working with? How many social tenants are you working with, or is it private renters, homeowners?
So we are mostly working with live using in new build homeowners, but there is some social housing in that mix. And then we've got projects such as Penderry, which we're working with and is in those stages now, bringing them where there's 600 people, and the numbers between now and the end of the year get very, very exciting.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I think I think as we see more and more transition across Wales in all sectors, and yes, private owners will probably be the last, unless there was a change in grant structure. Oh yeah, Kevin Thomas has asked, have you used any radiant heating or infrared heating systems in any of your solutions?
Not in any that I think that I've experienced, because we're serving. I think we've got some trial ones, but they don't have live customers that I've worked with in them.
Yeah, I think yesterday, Darren, sorry, for Kevin's benefit, Darren from Welsh Government said there was a number of ORP projects undergoing at the moment using radiant heating, infrared heating, and in time we'll see more case studies. I don't think there is further down in the case studies compared to the heat pump, because heat pumps are not new technology, are they, Chris?
Nope.
Scandinavia, Denmark, it's a standard. It's like 60% of Norway or something. Poland's got a huge amount of heat pumps now since the oil and the Ukraine crisis and things like that. So their case studies are much more developed, as is the technology, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some great stories in Scandinavia of communal heat pump systems where they've heating entire villages and only lowering the water temperature of a lake by 1 degree, and it's some really, really exciting stuff. Yeah, they're not new technology. We're putting them to a new use in the UK.
Yeah. Kirsty's asked, can you tell me how much the running costs for the unit itself is per day? I'm guessing it depends on the home, isn't it? What the running costs of a heat pump.
Yes, it depends on your temperatures, your what you've got set. Lots of variables. So I couldn't give a number that would be anything more than just plucked from the air.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to that, how you live in that home as well. So I was fascinated by that, which was when you showed me the graph that had the 5p units, that would be the time for your washing machine or your dishwasher. But again, at 3 till 4 in the morning, I'm like, I'm not getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to put the washing machine on or the dishwasher. But then that's where maybe we're not looking at technology, smart plugs, smart IES systems, to take advantage of that, because I'm asleep in the morning. Yeah.
And the other one to throw in that is electric vehicle charging as well, and that's why we're really committed to that outcome-based point of plug it in and tell us it needs to be ready by 8 o'clock, and let the system find the cheapest, greenest way to actually do that for you.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing also is with the batteries. The battery can be topping up at 3 o'clock in the morning, but then using that battery discharge at a time that suits you.
Yeah, and that's the point, is you're not changing necessarily the time that you use energy. You're changing the time you buy it, and then you use it later. You can get greater savings if you will change your behavior as well, but actually you can just go about your life and just take advantage of it by using an intelligent energy system.
Yeah, Amanda's made a point. We were told not to put machines on when not supervised by a fire brigade. I guess that's a personal choice. I know my dishwasher goes on overnight, and the washing machine goes, I think it's programmable. So my wife does it. So programmable to start at 4 in the morning. I think that's just a lifestyle choice, isn't it? for different people.
Yeah, it's an important thing to be mindful of. But yeah, you know, there's decisions to be made.
Yeah. But I ask this question in more general terms. How do we plan for the rate of technological change? You know, is going in all in on some new hardware advances a gamble? I guess the question is are things scalable or upgradable?
Yeah, there's a lot. Like, the reality is there's a lot of science going on and understanding what is the future point of it, and that's why with our pathways to zero is understanding, you know, the ways to do things in order that minimizes that risk and also, you know, gives the opportunity for future flexes and changes, so that it's dynamic and updated. You know, the price drops of heat pumps and suddenly accelerates the point of getting to them and those things. So we have to understand and know all of those things and try and make as most of an informed decision as we can. And that's what at Sero we're trying to support other people to do around it and exactly those things.
Yeah, I think Matthias also had that I spent a long time watching a whole load of European debates on the emerging technologies and things like that, and one of the things that comes out is one of the phrases is, you know, we've got to stop chasing unicorns. The fact is that the climate change is now, the gas crisis, the oil crisis in Ukraine and, you know, in Russia is now. We need to start moving some of these things onto new solutions, and heat pumps and things like that are not new technologies. No,
exactly. And yeah, it's chasing unicorn is that belief, well, what if something else comes on? Well, the problem is now, and if we don't do something about it now, we might go past this tipping point where we can't recover it because temperatures have risen too much. And I understand, I was talking to, he was a friend of mine, actually, we were in the pub, and he was like, yeah, we're the most innovative species that has ever existed. We'll find an answer without all doing this. And I just had to remind him, we are, but we're also the species that put a man on the moon before we put wheels on a suitcase. And sometimes we don't always prioritize things properly and cleverly, and we just need to get on with it.
Hannah's probably writing that quote down now.
Yeah, I like that one.
In one of her presentations.
It is absolutely true. I think wheels on a suitcase was patented in the mid-70s.
Kirsty, you're comment about safeness of heat pumps and noisy. I think I might leave that. I think we need a heat pump technical event. Technical event for people like us who don't understand them, and I think that'd be maybe better for that one. Kevin's asked a very good question: is on the whole, are you seeing happier tenants? Maybe that should be the last question of the session. How long is this session, Hannah? Sorry,
till 11.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I should have maybe kept that one to the last, but yeah.
Yeah, we are. Absolutely. And look, I 20 years in retail, complete customer focus, and we had lots of old things around it. And one of the biggest measures we knew when our customer was happy was customer churn. You know, our customer numbers going up or down. And he says, touching wood, every customer that's joined us is still with us. You know, 3 years in, 0 customer churn. That tells you people are happy. They get on with it. You know, that's not to say at times they haven't been like, oh, what have I done? When you work with them, support them, get them to understand it and use it and know all of those best things. Generally, people are really happy with the environment that it creates, and it's and saving money as well. So, yes.
Yeah. Lynn's asked about what happens if the electric goes off. Does everything have to reset by the tenants, and would that rely on someone coming out to do it, or, you know? That must happen now with electric. I know I have all sorts of things. My cooker fails and things like this.
Yeah, and so each device is different. We know the Sero B, if it loses power and then turns back on, it resets itself, recycles and comes back on. Most all other equipment, heat pumps, batteries, all just turn themselves back on. We have seen some of the batteries where they've been having, if they've lost power during a software update, they might stall and have needed a power a hard reset or power cycle. turning it off and turning it back on again to to you and me, with the exception of the most vulnerable and the most physically challenged customers that we've got. Everyone has been able to kind of just do that themselves with a bit of guidance over the phone, so it hasn't been a particular issue. We can sit there quite smugly in the event of, oh, something's happening, are you gonna have to go back in and turn this on? No, it'll turn back on, and if not, we can do it remotely. It's fine.
Yeah, that's great. Lovely. Right, Lynn's also asked about batteries not being recyclable. Are we just leaving a different type of waste dump to our children and grandchildren?
Do you know what? It's a really good question. It's something absolutely we've been mindful of, and what we're starting to see, and it's an emerging market. So I don't know the full detail, is these home batteries then being put to different uses somewhere else. So once they go beyond their usable life as a house battery, they are then put to another use and another use, which is starting to create a resale market. But also recycling of these batteries is accelerating rapidly. Now, you can see it with your mobile phone, can't you? A few years ago, no one wanted your old mobile phone. You've probably still got a few phones knocking around in that odd drawer of junk underneath the telly. I think I've got a Nokia 3210 in there somewhere.
Somewhere.
But now, because recycling has got to a point where they can reclaim these precious materials, it becomes cost effective. If you go to the Apple website now, you pick in your new phone, they're like, oh, what's your old one? We'll have your old one. We'll give you some money for your old one. There's loads of things coming through. So it's absolutely a great question. It's definitely something we should be mindful of, but I'm confident that the world is moving in a way to make sure that we don't do that, because that would be terrible.
And I think, Lynn, the metals and stuff in them, people are now going, yeah, no, there's a way of doing this. There was some valid question about things like wind turbines. You really can't do much with them. Some of the first generation wind turbines, they really do end up in waste. But I think batteries and stuff, there's a market developing for that, Good. So Lynn's on form today. Are your findings and costings based on housing associations given solar panels, batteries, proper insulation? As in, this is not just a heat pump, that they've put all the work in around it as well. Is that most of the stuff you're doing?
Yeah. So we one of our tools is a whole home survey, because we know there is a whole home solution. So it is factoring in all of those costs and things you need to, because some of the things that will need to happen to a home on its pathway to net zero aren't particularly innovative or thing like that. Some of it is renewing the insulation, making sure the windows are up to the right standard, and all of those things. So when our work is put in the pathway for that home and what it needs to get to net zero, it's not just the cool, sexy technology stuff. It's everything that's going to need to make that a warm, comfortable, energy efficient environment. Yeah.
And I think that's why we're going to see with WHQS, then as you're aware, a two-stage process, getting some of that fabric so that these solutions can go in. I personally would like to see those solutions speeded up. I think there's some exciting stuff around heat pumps and different heating systems that and water systems as well. But I know there'll be some pressure first to get that fabric first right, and then get some of these solutions into these insulated buildings. So
yeah, we've got a lengthy article on our website worth a look that actually, it talks about that fabric first and doing all this, but actually maybe solar first.
Yeah.
Solar first, fabric, and it's long debate, long discussion that, but yeah, I think that's absolutely where we fall through. Going solar first is great in that it reduces energy usage from the grid, lowers energy cost for the resident, financed properly, which you'll find out about in a later session this week.
And also, when you talk about solar first, I've got a video. Well, we've got a video at lunchtime, I think, Hannah, going out on YouTube. You'll see, or on social media, around a solar solution for communal blocks, for blocks of flats, because you wouldn't want to individually solar panel and individual inverters and all the technology goes with it. So we've got a video coming out at lunchtime on a Wales and West project, for any-
noon.
Oh, and amazing! And we're working on a project similar theme as well. And these are great because absolutely. Individually solar in each panel, it's not going to really work, and some people have come through it. Just that, and one thing I know you got a session this afternoon where you'll probably hear more about Penderi. There's also around that community solar sharing around it. So we know in any given estate or house association, not everyone's going to have the roof that is going to have maximum benefit from solar, but you don't get to choose your house, and it's not fair that the rents could be the same, one has a lower energy cost. We're very much in that whole cost point. And what we're working with in Penderi is how do we communalize that savings so that those people who don't have the roofs and all of those things that could benefit from solar can still benefit from the solar. It's an exciting project that we're working on there.
And I think that's Amanda and Bob's comments there about some can't get solar. You're right. The Penderi one is about moving that energy around. The Wales and West project is, let's say, a block of flats, and then some of them aren't even on the right side, for solar. So it's about sharing that energy in an equitable way. As I say, there's a number of exciting solutions out there. And Bob, you're saying, is it finding flats easier to sort out? Yes, but yes and no. So I don't know if I'm breaking any confidences here, but we were up with a housing association up in the top of the valleys recently. We're looking at a ground source heat pump for a block of flats. And they were like, yeah, no, it's going to be great, ground source, something else. And then they started looking at some of the old surveying charts and things of mining, unknown. And there was no evidence there would be a problem, but they also knew that area, some of the mapping, some of the charting of previous mine works, did not lend itself to a communal ground source heat pump, and they had to back out of it. So there's going to be challenges like that in Wales, where you've got the geology is maybe unclear about whether some of these solutions would work for a block of flats or something, So yeah, fascinating times. Just have a look what else.
In the meantime, I've popped in that link to our video at 12. It's a little premiere, so check it out if you're interested.
All right, great. I think, Kevin, there's a question there about how much you're spending on every property and do they reach net zero? I could ask Kris to answer that, but what I would say is there's a lot of work going on across Wales on ORP, which is Welsh Government help funding some of this work. And not everyone has. Some have. How much it cost each one? It's been interesting. So some have cost quite a bit of money for not a lot of gain, and that was the point of test and learn across Wales. I've also seen some ones where they've done very good jobs on a very good budget, and I think we need that body of evidence being widened outside of the professional inner circle of social housing. I don't know if Kris, if there's anything you want to add. I don't want to put it on the spot.
No, I think you've given a really good answer in the fact that there's so many different homes who need so many different solutions. Averages on that just aren't really fair and could be misleading. Every home is a different solution, and what we need to understand is what's the best way to get there.
Yes, that's why the technology, the person in it all has to be factored in. And that's something I would say to tenants out there today is when people are coming to knock your door, is that what considerations have they put in place in terms of your lifestyle and home? Have they asked you about that type of stuff when they are developing solutions for you? So I think Lynn, the final question there was thanks for the answers. I'd be surprised if all this happens for social housing tenants. I think, Lynn, from my perspective, all housing associations have got to get to, and local authorities have got to get to a standard in WHS2. The bit that worries me is, it turns out we're not going to call them acceptable fails now. We've got a new fancy name for it, and I've already forgotten what it was called now. But that's the bit that worries me. I think we'll do in the sector, we'll do amazing stuff over the next 10 years. But I think for tenants, I would want to be tracking whatever the fancy word for acceptable fails are, and ones that aren't going to maybe benefit from this affordable warmth, and why. That's the bit that concerns me personally.
Mhm.
Hannah, Kris, is there anything else you want to add? No.
No, I just want to say thank you so much, Kris, for joining. It's been really insightful, and yeah, I think at least I'm walking away with some excitement for what's coming up. So thanks for joining us again.
My pleasure. Thank you again. Thank you for having me. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you, Kris. Cheers.
Thank you. And for everybody that will be joining us at